The National Desk, America's News, now.
Listen up, everybody. Florida isn't played, baby.
Kamala Harris pushes south as Trump seeks to flip battleground states where each is focusing their attention with just 2 months to go. Gang activity in Denver may be more pervasive across the U.S. than initially believed. What the Biden administration is doing to combat the growing threat of a gang from Venezuela. And is your phone listening to your conversations? What one advertising group says that has big tech companies on the defense. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. There are just 63 days until Election Day, and both campaigns are in full swing for an intense dash to the finish. With the only presidential debate 1 week away, each campaign fine-tuning their messages to focus on the economy, immigration, and abortion. In the end, the election will come down to several swing states, where the candidates will focus the remainder of their time and resources, including Minnesota, Virginia, Georgia, and North Carolina. But the Trump team, it has pulled resources from New Hampshire, signaling they do not see a path to victory there. This as the Harris team expands into Florida today with a bus tour of surrogates, focusing on abortion rights as their key message.
Florida, with Kamala and Tim in the White House, a national abortion ban will never become law. Give them, Florida, a Democratic Congress. Elect pro-choice candidates.
As the campaigns make their final push, beware of what you see and share online as far as political content goes. A new form of mis- and disinformation is called spamiflage, when you see a large amount of random information from an account on social media mixed in with political posts. As national correspondent Matt Gelka tells us, a new report says China is flooding timelines in an effort to undermine democracy.
This Harlan RNC account on X claimed to be a 29-year-old New York Republican supporting Donald Trump. The photo looks similar to what you'd see from a friend on your own social media timeline. The account then rebranded as the Harlan Report.
While Joe Biden is on vacation, President Trump is
now claiming to be a 31-year-old in Florida. The account pushed pro-Trump and anti-Joe Biden content on X and TikTok. But a new report from online tracking firm Graphica says Harlan and many others are fakes, part of Spamiflage, a Chinese disinformation group targeting Americans on social media. And experts say chaos is the goal.
A lot of the reporting around China's efforts to influence the U.S. elections isn't to influence the election in favor of one candidate or another, but to engender conflict in the United States between the two political parties, to deepen the partisan divide, and to decrease faith in the U.S. election system.
The Graphica report shows multiple instances of accounts claiming to be everyday Americans when they're actually Chinese-linked online trolls. It's not one-sided, with the report saying other accounts have targeted Trump and, more recently, Kamala Harris. The constant flow of memes and graphics from Spamiflage-linked fake accounts don't seem to be gaining that much traction, but some videos can generate hundreds of thousands or millions of views. Artificial intelligence could be helping to generate content also. The report concludes China's efforts will only ramp up and get more sophisticated going forward.
I think there's also a responsibility for users to make sure that the content that they are sharing, that they're reading, is authentic, isn't misinformation.
The report about potential Chinese election meddling comes as Congress is set to focus and potentially vote on a number of bills this month related to the Asian superpower, many of them looking to curb China's global influence. For the National Desk in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
All right, Matt, thank you. Tragedy on the way to school in Lexington, Kentucky, where a 15-year-old girl and student at George Rogers Clark High School was struck and killed by a school bus as she was walking across Veterans Memorial Parkway. The identity of the girl has not yet been released. No one on the bus was harmed, but pastoral staff and grief counselors were made available for students who were on the bus and for students impacted by the deadly crash. And police are searching for the suspect in a shooting at the West Indian American Day Parade in Brooklyn yesterday. The NYPD says a 25-year-old man was killed, 4 others injured when the gunman fired right into the crowd. The suspect is described as 6 feet tall and last seen with a bandana over his face. At least 6 people are recovering right now from injuries after 6 separate shootings on a highway in King and Pierce counties in Washington last night. That's according to Washington State Patrol. 1 person, we understand, is in custody. The shooting spree happening over a few hours, leaving 3 people in the hospital, including 1 who was critically injured. Authorities are looking into whether the shootings are connected.
I think people need to be aware. And just, if they see any aggressive driving, make sure that you call 911 so that our troopers out on the road can address these problems accordingly.
And tonight, there are growing concerns about the presence of a Venezuelan gang operating in some American cities. One local mayor says he's working to shut down and clear out an entire apartment complex. National correspondent Christine Frizzau with the very latest.
The now viral video reportedly shows members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, recorded on a camera by neighbors who have since moved out of the building.
They have shoved their way into apartments. They have changed locks on residents, locks to the units and locks to the exterior entrances in the building. They have been living in absolute terror.
In a Facebook post, the mayor of Aurora, Colorado says he's now working to clear the entire building, declaring the property a criminal nuisance, adding the best course of action is to shut the building down, as local police have also intervened.
We're out here. We want to reassure the people that live in this community that we are actively investigating criminal activity that's happening and listening to them so that we can learn anything that we're missing.
As local leaders debate the best course of action in this small Denver suburb, other cities are also dealing with the large influx of migrants who have come to the border in the last few years. Though the numbers have dramatically dropped in the last few months, local issues have seeped into national politics, with changing positions from the Democratic presidential nominee.
Americans across the board want to have a secure border. Kamala Harris will work to deliver on that and secure the border.
Tren de Aragua, also known to have a presence in cities like New York and Chicago, with concerns mounting about the gang members themselves.
I used to supervise an MS-13 gang task force when I was with the FBI. I think you can make the argument that what we're seeing with the Venezuelan gang is actually worse than MS-13.
And I should say there are even concerns that members of Tren de Aragua may choose to form an alliance with MS-13, which could pose some frightening security risks. Now, as far as how to deal with this, passing new laws on the border and immigration remains the job of Congress, which so far appears to have given up on trying for now. Amira?
Yeah, of course, no movement expected policy-wise until after the election, if at all. And yet the concern is growing. How prevalent is this Venezuelan gang in the United States at this point?
Well, there have already been reports of them operating in multiple states, and they're prevalent enough that the Biden administration has now formally designated them as a transnational criminal organization. The head of the Border Patrol tweeted a couple months ago, quote, "Watch out for this gang. It is the most powerful in Venezuela, known for murder, drug trafficking, sex crimes, extortion, and other violent acts."
All right, always keeping us informed. Christine Frizzau from Washington, D.C., thank you. Happening right now, the search for 2 missing boaters in Connecticut. A 31-foot motorboat with 9 people on it struck a jetty in the Connecticut River just before 10 p.m. on Monday. We do know 1 person died in that accident. 6 were taken to the hospital. At least 1 of them has so far been released. We'll continue to track that. And the former deputy chief of staff for New York's governor has been arrested on charges of acting as an agent for the Chinese government. Linda Sun and her husband are also accused of money laundering and visa fraud, among other felony charges. Governor Kathy Hochul's press secretary told CNN that Sun was let go back in March of 23 when they learned of evidence that there was misconduct. Hochul's office also turned over this evidence to law enforcement last year. Sun, by the way, also worked for former Governor Andrew Cuomo before he was removed from office. Jury selection is underway in the trial over the 2021 Colorado supermarket mass shooting that tragically took the lives of 10 people. Ahmed Al-Alawi Alisa pleaded not guilty due to insanity. Defense attorneys argue his schizophrenia prevented him from understanding right from wrong. Prosecutors will have to prove Alisa's actions were not of someone mentally ill, and opening statements are expected by the end of the week. At least 840 hotel workers back to work today after a strike. Around 10,000 Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott employees in 9 cities across the country walked off the job on Sunday to demand better pay and working conditions. That's according to their union. Many workers are still on strike today. Hilton and Hyatt reps said they're committed to reaching agreements. And coming up, the new temperature milestone reached in the Southwest as tens of millions of people are under heat alerts today. Then news for those of you who feel like your phone might be spying on you. What a marketing firm just shared about how it uses your information. And later, how a Central California city is helping residents learn about the 9/11 terrorist attack and honor the thousands of lives that were lost. We'll be right back. The National Hurricane Center tracking 3 tropical waves in the Atlantic, one that's in the Caribbean Sea, and that could develop into a tropical depression when it reaches the southwestern Gulf of Mexico by the weekend. Another one in the far eastern Atlantic could bring heavy rain and gusty winds to the Cabo Verde Islands in a day or two. And the third is in the central Atlantic, but likely won't develop any further. Right now, a dangerous heat wave is building over the west coast and southwest, leaving 45 million people under heat alerts. Cities like Los Angeles and Las Vegas could be 10 to 20 degrees above normal, with temperatures forecast to climb in the next couple of days and peak Thursday and Friday. Phoenix just reached a big milestone today, getting up to 100 degrees for the 100th day in a row for the first time ever. It's only ever reached 76 straight days before this, and that happened back in 1993. Temperature records could be broken throughout the week in other cities. And a wildfire in Sierra County, California has burned more than 1,000 acres and forced mandatory evacuations. That's according to CAL FIRE as of this morning. That shows the Bear Fire burned nearly 1,400 acres. That one 0% contained. It started yesterday afternoon on the east side of the Tahoe National Forest. The fire threatens more than 280 buildings, and the cause at this point is unclear. Power's still cut off for around 245 homes in Southern California today because of dangerous landslides. The city of Rancho Palos Verdes turned off people's electricity starting Sunday so they can make repairs. The landslides have gotten dramatically worse since last year. Some of the outages will last indefinitely. The U.S. Justice Department has charged Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar and others in connection with the October 7th attack in Israel. The charge Charges include conspiring to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization, resulting in death. Attorney General Merrick Garland says this is part of the United States' effort to go after every aspect of Hamas operations. A spokesperson for the Navy has confirmed that 2 off-duty Marines were attacked at a port visit in Izmir, Turkey yesterday. The 2 were attacked by a group of men, and one of the Marines had a bag placed over his head while the crowd chanted in Turkish as well, saying, "Yankee, go home." CBS reports that the men belonged to a Turkish youth union who posted the video online saying, quote, "U.S. soldiers who have the blood of thousands of Palestinians on their hands cannot defile our country." The Marines were released from the hospital last night, and they have since returned to their ship. In the U.S., outside of Columbia University and Barnard College, 2 people were arrested as students led a picket march calling on the schools to cut ties with companies doing business with Israel because of its military campaign in Gaza. On the campus of Columbia, students returned to class only to find the alma mater statue vandalized with red paint poured on top of it. Protests have rocked campuses across the country, and Columbia has been the epicenter. And this has all happened since the spring as anti-war demonstrators seek to pressure schools to hold Israel accountable for their handling of the war in Gaza, which they say has indiscriminately killed too many innocent Palestinian civilians. More than 50 people have been killed and more than 200 others wounded as 2 Russian ballistic missiles hit a military training facility and a nearby hospital in central eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying the strike hit the city of Poltava, about 200 miles southeast of Kyiv. It appears to be the deadliest Russian strike since the start of the war in February of 2022. And new tonight, the District of Columbia Attorney General Brian Schwalb, along with Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown, are targeting 3 Maryland gun shops charged with selling more than 30 semi-automatic firearms to a man who then illegally sold them to others. Schwalb said these weapons were then used in crimes across both D.C. and Maryland, and the initial gun shops need to be held accountable.
Strong gun laws don't matter if gun dealers don't follow them. They don't work if gun dealers that are supplying guns choose to flout the law in order to pump the volume of their sales.
The Attorney General also said that 95% of firearms recovered in the district are purchased in Maryland or Virginia, with the vast majority of them trafficked by straw purchasers. Active listening software is real, and yes, your phone is recording what you say to sell you what you want. At least that is what marketing firm Cox Media Group told its investors recently. According to 404 Media, Cox Media, whose firm represents Facebook, Google, and Amazon, among other entities, said their active listening software is powered by AI and captures real-time data by listening to your conversations and online behavior. 404 reports that Amazon said they have never worked with CMG on this program. Meta denied using microphones for ads, and Google says they comply with all applicable laws regarding advertising. It is day 3 of a blackout of ESPN and other Disney-owned ABC affiliates for DirecTV, impacting 11 million subscribers. Disney pulled the cable channels from the provider's lineup on Sunday because the 2 companies couldn't reach a new distribution deal. DirecTV says it's offering customers $20 credits for the outage, but they have to go to DirecTV's website and apply for it. In your health alert, new research today that could give hope to those waiting for a kidney transplant. Medical reporter Liz Bonis sharing what we've learned now about 2 common types of home dialysis.
Hey there, everybody. Dialysis is a process that filters the blood in those living with kidney disease because the kidneys themselves cannot do that. What patients need to know, however, about home dialysis could make a difference when it comes to the risk of dying from heart disease.
Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in patients who have kidney failure and who are on dialysis.
To find out if there are ways to lower that risk, Dr. Sylvie Shaw of Ohio's UC College of Medicine recently studied 2 types of dialysis patients use at home. One is called HD, or hemodialysis. The other is called PD, or peritoneal dialysis. HD uses an artificial kidney machine to filter blood 3 to 5 times a week. PD uses the lining of the abdomen as a filter for the blood. She found better cardiovascular results with those on HD.
So patients who were on home hemodialysis had a 42% lower risk of stroke. They had a 17% lower risk of acute coronary syndrome, 22% lower risk of cardiovascular death, and 8% lower risk of all-cause death as compared to patients who were on peritoneal dialysis.
Dr. Shaw speculates this is due to a number of things, from intensity to fluid balance. But for those on dialysis awaiting a transplant, this information can help someone such as Tyrese Baker make an informed choice.
So I always keep these.
He's a year out now from his kidney transplant after being on dialysis for years. As he showed us with his old scrubs, he's also now down 140 pounds and grateful to the donor that changed his life.
Thank you. I can honestly thank you so much. This has been a life changer. And I would encourage anyone out there that if you are not a donor, if you never thought about being a donor, to please become a donor, because you will save someone else's life. And that family and that person saved mine.
Now, one of the things this team also wants us to know is how to prevent kidney disease and the need for any type of dialysis in the future. They suggest 2 things. Ask your doctor for certain tests that can check your kidney health at your annual checkup, and keep your blood pressure within normal limits. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
All right, Liz, thank you. Coming up, the technology that California could become the first state to require to reduce deadly car crashes. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin with the new youth curfew to curb crime at the biggest mall in Maryland.
Already this morning, we've noticed police and security here in the parking lot, and that electronic sign letting folks know that this is kicking in this week. All visitors under 18 must be accompanied by a parent or adult age 21 or older after 3 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. Mall employees under 18 are also subject to the policy, which means if their shift ends during the curfew, they must go if they're without an adult. Now, according to Anne Arundel County Police, since the start of the year, officers have responded to 19 robberies, assaults, 6 robberies, 8 disorderly conduct calls, and 18 thefts, all involving minors.
Bob Dwyer, a former New York City firefighter, tells me about his experience on September 11th, 2001.
It seemed like every 5 steps we took, it got darker and darker. Just the smoke and eventually the fire.
Pelco Video Security CEO David McDonald first put up the 9/11 memorial at Pelco headquarters in Clovis. In December 2001, Clovis had a large dedication for the lives lost and invited every single first responder that helped in 9/11. Over 1,011 showed up.
But just those connections that were made between the city of Clovis, between Pelco, between the police and fire departments of the city of Clovis in New York is one which remains today.
That's why the city of Clovis wanted the Never Forget mobile exhibit to come to the Central Valley to further educate people about the terrorist attack that happened 23 years ago.
SB 961 was one of the last bills lawmakers passed in the final hour of the California legislative session. If Governor Newsom signs it, car builders would be required to install speed technology in vehicles made or sold in California starting in 2030. When a car or truck exceeds a speed limit by 10 miles an hour, drivers would receive an audio and visual alert. This would be the first law of its kind in the nation. Walk San Francisco, a co-sponsor of the bill, claims more than 1,000 people are killed in California due to speed-related crashes each year. It adds tens of thousands are seriously hurt.
Coming up, new images of underwater wreckage of the Titanic. When we come back, what they reveal. Well, this just in, new photos show the dramatic decay occurring under the water in terms of the wreckage of the Titanic. The incredible images taken by RMS Titanic, a company that has salvage rights to the doomed vessel. The wreckage sits on the floor of the North Atlantic Ocean. Images now showing a previously intact railing around the ship's upper deck that has fallen off. RMS Titanic says it's saddened by the inevitable decay, and it'll continue to document what it can as the ship's condition changes. Though in the past it's retrieved artifacts, it didn't this time due to criticism from scientists who believe the site should be left alone. And that does it for this edition of the National Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.